Hidden within forbidden pages lies a truth the world forgot. Angels once walked among us until desire made them fall. They were not born for chains, but they chose to fall. One man remained, holding the last light. They were not just giants. They were judgment walking on 2 feet. The darkness has not ended. It waits to rise again. It rose from the abyss, driven by vengeance. One warrior stood alone against the armies of darkness.
Welcome to Prayer Station. Have you ever wondered if something was hidden in the shadows of history? An ancient book erased from the Bible, not because it was wrong, but because it told a truth humanity wasn't ready to accept. Why were there angels who didn't fall because of pride, but because of love, or more precisely, because of lust? Why did giants once roam the earth, ravenous, wild, devouring human flesh? This is not mythology. This is the forbidden truth about Enoch, the man taken up to heaven, about the Watchers, the fallen angel, and a terrifying war between heaven and earth of which, even now, we only know a small part. Enoch, the 7th generation from Adam, the only man in all of history, who never died. The Bible gives him only one single line, and Enoch walked with God. Then he was no more because God took him. No obituary, no grave, no ashes, only a disappearance, drenched in the divine. But beyond the Bible, in a banned ancient text, the Book of Enoch, a staggering story is revealed. Enoch was not just a righteous man. He was taken up to heaven, granted terrifying visions of the future, and became the first to witness the fall of angel and the first to understand the true origin of sin. He alone stood between heaven and earth, carrying a message no one else dared to bear from long, long ago, before the great flood ever came. 200 angels, the Watchers, descended from heaven. They were sent not to judge, but to observe and guide humanity, but they watched too long. And then they began to desire the daughters of men, beautiful, gentle, stirred the hearts of the angels. Choose for yourselves wives from among the humans, and let us bear children with them. Shemihaza, their leader, hesitated at first. If I do this, I alone will bear the guilt. But no one turned back. On Mount Hermon they made a pact, an oath that could not be broken, a covenant between angels against heaven. Then they fell. One by one they took wives from humankind, and from this forbidden union, the Nephilim were born. Gigantic beings, hungry, violent, uncontrollable. At first they consumed crops, then livestock, and when food ran out, they turned on humanity. They devoured men, drank their blood, and in the end, they devoured each other. The earth groaned in blood, and the cries of mankind reached the heights of heaven. The Watchers did not only betray heaven through lust, they did something far more horrifying. They opened the vault of heavenly knowledge and poured it out upon humanity. Azazel taught mankind metallurgy and the forging of weapons, swords, shields, spears, blades. The world began to bleed, not for life, but for power. Shemihaza passed on incantations and sorcery. The weak could now summon spirits, call the dead, bind souls, alter the fabric of creation. Barakel taught how to read omens in the sky. Ezekiel revealed the paths of the stars. Amazarach, the art of breaking spells and casting enchantments. Gavriel, how to decipher the moon. Shamsiel, the secrets of unlocking the sun. Things that belonged only to the celestial realm, now rested in the hands of men, and they were not ready to bear it. All boundaries were blurred, between the divine and the mortal, between angel and demon, between the holy and the blasphemous. Once again, like Eden, mankind reached out for forbidden knowledge, and the price was the entire world. War erupted, magic awakened, corruption spread until finally, the cries of humanity pierced through the cloud and stirred all of heaven. Then, judgment came. Heaven was silent no more. God sent his mightiest ones, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, not to speak, but to end everything. Raphael stepped forth. When the light beneath his feet touched the earth, the desert quaked, and the Lord said, "Bind Azazel, cast him into the abyss, beneath jagged rocks as sharp as the accusations against him." Azazel, the one who taught men to craft deadly weapons, was now buried in darkness where no light could ever enter. Gabriel followed. He was given a far more terrifying command. "Destroy the Nephilim. Let them slaughter one another, leave not a single one alive." These giants who once trampled mankind with pud were now thrown into chaos, butchering each other, their blood staining the skies. Then Michael appeared. No other angel bore such majestic glory. At his gaze, even the fallen trembled in fear. "Bind Shemihaza, the leader of the Watchers, chain him and all his companions for 70 generations until the final day of judgment, when eternal fire will consume them." They were cast into the bottomless pit where only wailing remains, where every eye is veiled by darkness, and then, from above, the great flood was unleashed, not only to cleanse mankind, but to erase all trace of the fallen angels and their offspring. A divine reset, a cosmic restoration, not out of wrath, but for justice. Between heaven and earth stood Enoch, not an angel, no longer just a man. He was summoned, not to observe, but to become the last remaining bridge between the fallen angels and God. The Watchers, those who once soared proudly through the heavens, now lay prostrate, weeping. In their despair, they clung to Enoch's robe and begged, "Please, plead for us. Intercede with him. Do not let our children perish in such agony." Enoch nodded, and once again, he was taken up. He passed through the first heaven, then the second, then the third, until the light grew too blinding for words to describe. He stood before the throne of glory, and there he heard the voice speak. God was not angry, he did not shout, but every word thundered like a storm in the still of night. "There is no peace for those who were never meant to die. You became flesh, you betrayed heaven." Enoch returned. His face was no longer the same. His eyes carried the light of a place no one had ever seen, and he spoke the verdict. "No mercy, no delay. You shall be bound, buried in darkness until the final day of judgment. You will witness the ruin of your children, but you shall not weep. You shall not plead, for your petition have been rejected." Enoch, the man who once walked with God, had now become the bearer of condemnation, and from that moment on, he was no longer merely a man. Their bodies decayed, flesh and bone returned to dust, but their souls did not. They did not belong to heaven, for their blood was of man. They did not belong to earth, for their spirits were the rebellious fire of angels. No refuge, no home to return to, no gate stood open to receive them. So what happens? When a soul cannot die and cannot truly live, it wanders. It hides in the shadows, it screams through the unseen realm, a being without a body, without hope, driven only by pure hatred for life itself. This is how demons were born, not created by God, not summoned by magic, but born from the forbidden union between angel and human. Since then, these souls began to haunt mankind. They whisper into the ears of the weak. They appear in the nightmares of children. They ignite wars, stir up lust, provoke murder. They are the reason man still chooses evil, even when knowing good. They are the open wound between the sacred and the fallen. And until the final day of judgment, they will not find rest. No forgiveness, no release. Only an eternity of pain. But the story of Enoch did not end there. After delivering the judgment to the fallen angels, Enoch did not return to the earth. Instead, he was taken even higher through the layers of the heavens. There Enoch was shown things no mortal had ever seen, the storehouses of the winds, where the currents slumber before being sent across the oceans. The chambers of thunder, where lightning is formed from heavenly light and fire. He saw flames chasing the stars as if a divine symphony was still playing endlessly in the universe. Then he was led to the tree of wisdom. No one, no human being, from the dawn of creation to the final day is permitted to touch its fruit. Except for the righteous, those who survive the final judgment. The fruit of the tree is not for the strong, but for the humble, the one who keeps faith to the end, the one who does not sell their soul for earthly glory. Enoch walked through paradise. It was not just a garden of fragrance and light. It was the place where the souls of the righteous are stored, awaiting resurrection. He passed the prison of the rebellious angels, where fire does not cease and darkness never retreats. And then he stood before the throne of the Most High, a throne brighter than the sun, surrounded by tens of thousands of angels, 10,000 times 10,000, all silent, awaiting a single word to be spoken amid this overwhelming sight. Enoch was called by name. No longer a man, no longer a prophet, but the scribe of truth. Scribe of truth. This title was not merely an honor, it was a burden, to record all that he had seen, so that on the final day, when the books are opened, no soul could deny their fate. There is one thing that haunts me every time I finish reading the Book of Enoch. It's not the fact that the Watchers fell, not how they were punished, but why they fell. They didn't fall because of pride like Lucifer. They fell because of desire, a desire so human, love, or more precisely, carnal obsession. They saw the daughters of men were beautiful, and they chose not to look away. They chose to love, to possess, and the price was to lose heaven forever. But the most tragic part was not their misplaced love. It was the gift they gave humanity, not grace, but forbidden knowledge. They taught mankind how to forge weapons. They taught women cosmetics, astrology, sorcery, enchantments. Secrets that did not belong to man, secrets meant only for heaven. We've seen echoes of this across other civilizations. In Adapa, man was granted divine wisdom but deceived out of eternal life. In Prometheus, the god who brought fire, the light of knowledge, to humans, and was chained to a rock, his liver eaten by birds day after day. All of them carry the same ancient message. With divine knowledge, always comes a divine cost. So maybe Enoch was never just part of history. Maybe he was never written for admiration, but for warning. A voice crying out in the midnight of an age. Do not touch what is not yours, for once you know, you cannot go back. If what you've just heard made you uneasy, made you question, or woke you up from the silence that history forced you to accept, then don't keep it to yourself. Share this light. Hit like, so the algorithm doesn't bury this truth. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss what's coming next. And comment below. Do you believe the Watchers are just myth, or that they truly once walked the earth? Because what you've just heard is only the beginning. There are still many truths erased from the Bible, and I'm going to take you deeper. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again, where ancient secrets continue to rise.